Hello and welcome to another episode of Contramundum. Thank you so much for joining us. I am Andrew Isker, and here with me is CJay Engel. Hello, CJay. How are you? How was your week?
Good. I was traveling. Went to the great state of Arkansas, poked around a bit, so it was fun. I got to see my brother and his family, so it was good. It was enlightening, and yeah, I enjoyed it.
Nice.
Yeah.
So what did you do in Arkansas? What is there to do in Arkansas? Tell us.
Well,
Tell us about this.
I was poking around because I don't know if the audience is aware or you're aware, but California is a politically intense state for people like us.
You're telling me that for the first time.
It's like it got to be realistic about the future. It's hard for me. I'm almost like a romantic in the way I approach like my home, But like if you look up like the Sierra Nevadas or Colfax where I live, it's gorgeous and you'll see why. But I've lived here my whole life and this is part of who I am. So it's not something I take flippantly. A lot of people are moving, especially from the coasts. I would be honored to live in the heartland. I am, there's heartland sentiments in my blood. So it's that's why I was poking around there. My brother lives there. He moved out from California a couple of years ago. So
I see. So he prepared the ground for you. Well,
yeah, we were looking at some land. I want to get some like cattle, and I want to live the life over there. So
you want to be a cowboy? Okay, all right.
See. But yeah, it's funny because I'm also looking at Idaho and Montana. Those are also areas that I'm looking at too. The thing is, I live in pine forests, so it'd be quite the
you couldn't handle the deciduous forests. Well, we're starting to get some questions, so this is good because we build this as an ask me anything or ask us anything episode. So there's a few questions here. Some of them have already made me laugh, as you can tell. So CJay, which ones you want to roll with first? Obviously,
let me just comment on the Idaho one because I got comments on that. But so I've been to Idaho multiple times. I didn't like the southern side. I like Moscow on up, obviously because it's mountainous, just like it's exactly like where I live. So we thought about that. Although like Coeur d'Alene's turned into sort of like a resort town where all these rich liberals are leaving Washington and Oregon and California to go up there. So
I was just there. I can tell you about Coeur d'Alene a little bit more.
I have been there multiple times.
So
I have mixed feelings on it, but I agree it's absolutely gorgeous. But it reminds me of home. So it's something that I'm open to, but I don't want to leave one area of rich white liberals and move to another area of where it's kind of like they're all flocking. I don't want to be part of the problem. So
yeah. Well, at the same time, most of the guys that I spent time with in Coeur d'Alene, most of them were from California. And had moved there in the last 5 or 10 years,
right?
So you maybe fit in there with them. They were Southern Californian, so maybe not. I don't know.
Yeah. They're from fake California.
This is a good one. This made me laugh. Andrew, when can we make the sword duel? I'm trying to look around my camera with James Lindsay happen. That's up to James. There can only be one. There can only be one Highlander, and so yeah. I mean, if he's up for it, I'm not a practiced swordsman, but I'm pretty sure I could probably win. So I don't think it'd be very hard.
Ooh,
I mean, he would get winded after like 20 seconds. So I mean, it'd be done, man. Yeah, so let's see. We have more serious questions too.
I have a question from Twitter from yesterday. Okay. He said, obviously this is for you. He said, "Why are the Vikings and all Minnesota pro sports so terrible and disappointing all the time?"
Because we're cursed here. That's just the reality. Like with this area, I think there's an ancient corn demon curse from the Sioux Indians. That curse the land and it results in hundreds of thousands of people from the Horn of Africa being imported here and all our sports teams being bad. So there you go. Next question. Next question. This I think this is good. So friends here, at Forge and Ave, I went on their show recently. Davis Yuntz, I think I'm pronouncing that right. The lawyer for Michael Cassidy is coming on the show on Monday. What should I ask him? That's a great get. That's cool. You're familiar with what happened, right, CJ?
Yeah, I do have internet. Yeah.
I, I don't know. I got tagged in it about no less than 50 times. Like, did you see this? People texting me all day, which is great. I'm so glad that they wanted me to know about it. And so yeah, what what would you ask him? I think, I mean, from like a practical standpoint, like a practical legal standpoint, what I would ask his attorney is, because right now it's like fourth degree criminal mischief, like a couple $100 fine is what he'll have to pay. But that's the state of Iowa, or the municipality of Des Moines or whatever. And so the thing I would want to know is the Department of Justice going to get involved with like federal hate crimes stuff and try to charge him with a felony? What is the likelihood of that? Maybe that's something. At the same time, like, this is an ongoing case, and it's not a thing that he would want to comment on, quite frankly. But I think at the same time, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know what the duties and responsibilities of a criminal attorney are for his client. But I would think part of it is like managing public relations and wanting the public to be aware that his client could be made into a target by the federal government and the Biden administration. And so I think I would want to know what he thinks the likelihood of that is, and what their plan, like what is the plan for that? Are they going to continue to raise funds on Give, Send, Go? Because once the federal government is involved, it's no longer a minor, legal fee that you're going to have. Now you're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars of legal fees.
Right. If it's a state level thing, it could go away in a couple weeks. Basically, it could be kind of wrapped up. Obviously, there's still proceedings, but most of those things are pretty like you can foresee where it's all going.
Yeah.
I mean, the only reason the federal government would get involved is for purely political reasons.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
But, this kind of reminds me of like the other topic. Everyone's talking about the Civil War trailer,
Yes.
So
yes.
I think they are going to use things like this. I mean, this is sort of like one of those forks in the road eras in American history. Like, we are facing a fork in the road, and we're going to have to react, and we're going to say, like, the narrative is going to be like, see, these guys are extremist radicals. They watched the Civil War movie, and now they're trying to implement. Like, it's total setup. It's total narrative setup. And so, yeah, they need to play this up for political reasons. They need to involve themselves for political reasons, because they're crafting the narrative. Like, they're going to turn us into what everyone thought of the Muslim world after 9/11.
Yeah. Yeah. That's 100% what it is. I mean, and you see that the traitorous GOP Congress just passed the FISA Act, or just renewed it. The majority of them did. I don't think my congressman did, so that's good. But they just passed that because, and what is, so yeah, like you said, it was in the past, it was Muslim terrorists, jihadists, even then, they're so secularized that they wouldn't say that. Like, oh, Islam's a religion of peace, and they wouldn't say those things. But now, right, they create that, I don't want to say boogeyman, because it obviously was real. Well, mostly real, partly real. We can go down that rabbit hole. But they created this thing that everybody's afraid of, and then it's easily cut. They can easily cut and paste a different target onto that now, and that target is conservative white Christians that they want to they want to easily say that they're Nazis. Right. They want to say that this guy is a Nazi. And of course, Nazis, you are allowed to do violence to on site. Right. That's what they've programmed into the minds of, the mainstream population. And so if they could say that Christians are Nazis, then it's no holds barred, right? Then
Mhm.
then the gloves are off and they go nuts.
Mhm.
Um, there was one here I want to make sure we get because
Yeah,
there's a
there's
lot
a
of good
couple.
questions.
Yeah. Oh, we lost Andrew. He'll be back in a second. I think he may have wanted to. Let's see. Let's do this one. He's promoting. Oh, there he is. He's back.
He's
Is
back.
this the one that you wanted to talk? This is a good question. This is actually a detailed
Yes,
question. Um,
yes,
my perspective on this might be a little bit different than Andrew's. We'll see. But my
we
thought
will
is
see.
that
Yeah,
generally this is the function of the magistrate, especially the lesser magistrate. Generally,
yeah,
um, but I also think that magistrates who don't perform in their duty can create situations where there's sort of a state of emergency. And these types of actions, I think it's okay to think of them as legally illegitimate. So, like, so for instance, I can be okay with this guy actually going onto public property, beheading the satanic statue, and then facing justice and going to jail. I'm okay with all of those dynamics.
and
But like,
apparently so is he.
yeah,
From
no,
what it sounds like. Yeah,
I'm okay with
yeah,
those things. I would like personally, if I was in that situation, I would consider that a just trade-off.
yeah.
Like this is the way that like even like a lot of people that have thought long and hard about how to approach regimes, they recognize that there has to be legal consequences for public disorder, and
Mhm.
they're willing to face those consequences in order to make a statement, in order to make a point. So
Yeah.
I wouldn't argue. I wouldn't argue along the lines of he was legally justified because it was I think he may have been morally justified. I think he could have been politically justified, but I think that it's okay for him to face the consequences of these things. But these are still good things to do. We need to challenge the system in this way.
Well, I would yeah, I would agree with you at the same time, and I don't think you would disagree with what I'm going to say. The If I'm on the jury that is judging his case, I would nullify
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
and
for sure,
vote not guilty, right?
for sure. But I
Because
but I also
the
wouldn't say this is an
yeah,
outrage of justice if he goes to jail.
yeah, yeah.
No,
So I put it that way. Yeah, yeah. So I would say he's not guilty because the way that our completely messed up system views the law and views the First Amendment is not how it is originally intended ever. Like
exactly. Yeah.
no one. I mean,
In other words, he's creating situations where we can re-specify the parameters of religious freedom. Because
yeah,
religious freedom, historically in America, religious freedom was within the boundaries of Christendom. It
yeah,
referred to the freedom of denominations and sub Christendom groupings. Baptists, Presbyterians, Methodists, even Catholics. Depending on your interpretation. But like, that's the boundaries of religious freedom. It
yeah,
never was intended to include Satanism, Islam, Hinduism, etc. Right? Especially when these things become politically relevant.
yeah. They would. It would. You would. I mean, in original America, you would tolerate if there for whatever reason were Muslims or Hindus or whatever on your shores, like you would tolerate them.
Until it
Um,
becomes a political thing.
until they encroach upon the political order and the
Yeah.
religious order in your country,
Yeah. But
right?
when
Then,
you put up a statue in a public setting like that, within a state owned, you're obviously that's a political statement. It's no longer
yeah,
private like that anymore.
and even like originally, exactly. Like here's the other point that I was about to make. Regarding the First Amendment is, and Ryan Turnipseed had a good tweet about this when that goofball state rep in Iowa was. Did you see that guy? His
Uh
comments.
I didn't see
Dunwell,
Ryan's.
Representative Dunwell.
Yeah, I didn't see
Um,
that.
he you need to yeah you need to be on Twitter more, man. Because this guy's just a clown. Like it was just your typical pietistic. Like this guy's a pastor somewhere in Iowa and is saying that no, we have religious freedom, and I will defend the right of these people to practice their religion. It's like no, you're like literally defending Satanism, right? You're defending the mockery of Christianity
Mhm.
is and
Well,
blasphemy.
they've
Yeah.
bought into the reinterpretation of
Yeah.
all these phrases like freedom
Because I
and
believe in the
rights.
Constitution. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
all
it's like,
these things have been they've all these things, the foundation has been ripped away and they've been like set into the the post-war ideological consensus. So
yeah. And
the
yeah.
phrase they don't
So
realize that the phrases themselves are different. Like all these words, the rhetoric, they all had completely different meanings.
yeah,
Like if you
they're
look at
making
like
this
one
an
of my favorite.
anachronistic standard. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Like have you seen like the penalties that Thomas Jefferson wanted to apply to homosexuals?
I didn't.
They
Thomas Jefferson of all people, too.
exactly, that's why it's fun to
Yeah.
cite, but yeah, he was an advocate of, dismemberment, I should say it that way. So, like, these guys did not have, a 1990s approach to these morally deranged, habits and norms at all.
Yeah, and when you think of someone like James Lindsay, who's like, "Oh, we believe in classical liberalism and freedom," and it's like, and the Constitution and everything else. Like, if you were in a room with the men that drafted the Constitution, they would think you're insane,
Mhm,
right? They would actually like if James Lindsay was around in 1787, they would have deported him.
mhm,
Right, they would have kicked him out of the country
yeah,
for suggesting the ideas that he is like, you need no, you like after 1789, like, man, you belong in France. You don't belong
yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah,
You
exactly.
know, and so it's and that's the point that Turnipseed made is he's like the incorporation of the First Amendment to the states and applying it that way didn't exist until 1947 until a Supreme Court ruling in 1947. Right. I mean, literally post-war consensus.
Mhm,
Right. These rights, so-called, did not exist
mhm,
until the mid 20th century. And the freedom and the Constitution that you built, like that's always the question that I ask, right? People when they're like, because there were, one of the tweets I sent about it, kind of blew up, and of course you have all of these idiot leftoids that are like he violated the First Amendment and he's violated the Constitution, and I'm like, which Constitution?
mhm,
Right? Which one? Which Constitution? Right? And they
mhm,
they don't know they like they can't even understand what I'm asking. Right?
yeah,
The U.S. Constitution, like, but which one? Right? Which
yeah,
one?
yeah,
Which
yeah,
one? And
you
they
need
they
to
don't they
study
don't get that.
people need to study the incorporation. I mean, this is what Stephen Wolfe always harps on. People are like, the First Amendment, there should be no religious tests. He goes, what's the first word of the First Amendment? Congress. This is
Yeah.
if this is binding
Yeah.
on Congress because yeah, people just have no conception of the original structure of our legal system, of our
No,
political legal
not
system.
whatsoever. Not at all.
Do you want
So
to do
let's
this
see.
one?
There's another. Okay, yeah.
Let me.
So I
Yeah.
wanted you.
So
Yeah, let me read it. You go ahead.
yeah. So let's see. So he was. Yeah. My advice. So for these situations is do what benefits you basically, like right now. Like continue to raise your family, be a good like learn about the American system and assimilate yourself basically
Yeah,
into our
yeah,
traditions and our heritage. That would be the most beneficial. If you really do agree with us on everything, do that.
mhm,
Like no one's coming after you personally, right? Like
yeah,
that's
yeah,
I'm not interested in drawing a map with pinpoints of all these micro cases of people.
yeah,
I'm into more of the macro. What are the
yeah,
macro trends?
yeah,
First of all, stop immigration right now. That's the very first thing. Just stop
yeah,
all immigration. Then we can start deportations, and things like that. But like, just as for your own personal situation, just keep doing what you're doing and be a good citizen. Like, I don't have any
yeah,
advice for you. Like, just keep your, if we win, keep your head down and trust in God and see what happens. But like, these are
yeah.
big macro problems. I'm not interested in like going door to door, checking people like that.
Like, are you what kind of like the Civil War clip? Like, what kind of American are you?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah, exactly. Exactly.
yeah. Well, and not only that, like, people always bring up like the outliers of which at this point they are outliers. Like, if you go back and listen to the one episode that we did on the Michael and or a couple we did 2 episodes on the Michael Anton unprecedented article where we just talked about the like rate of immigration and things like that it's just astounding. There's literally no precedent in world history for an empire to do what America's done.
Yeah.
And so people will always like bring up and that there's zero assimilation, right? There's none whatsoever going on. Um, and so people always bring up the outlier. They'll be like, "Well, I know this
Hmm.
one immigrant that family from wherever, and they love America and they love American history, and they've totally bought into our way of life and everything else." So and so the argument people will make because of that, because of the exception, is all immigrants are like that, and it's like,
Hmm.
well, no, we know that's
Yeah.
not true at all.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, all you have to
But
do is
also,
like,
it's like because
but
these things are so complicated, like
yeah.
like you can either just walk away from everything and just let it all happen and face the consequences of that, or you can actually address it and then make some mistakes along the way, and
Mhm.
um, affect people who are actually maybe decent or whatever. There's no
Mhm.
perfection. There's
No.
no immigration perfection. So
No, there isn't.
I'd rather save the country, and make mistakes on the individual level than err on the other side and just let the entire country just go to ruin for the sake of the exceptions.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. And like the exception like proves, again, proves the rule. And I think we all pretty much know different examples of people that did assimilate despite the pressure to not assimilate to American culture and way of life and so forth. And so it is messy, right? Like what you
Hmm.
said. But I think for Sam here, his individual case, like you said, just continue to continue to uh, raise your family, be faithful to the Lord, and be faithful where you're at. Right.
And also, and
That's what
also,
needs to be done.
I would also say, speak out in defense of your host country.
Yeah.
Learn
Yeah.
their way, learn their history,
Yeah.
and defend their ways. Um, it's never been, immigration is never an absolutist situation.
Yeah.
Like people, powerful white liberals are way more dangerous to this country than some random, pick a country,
Yeah.
immigrant, basically.
Yeah. Yeah. And especially if they are coming to like the small few that like actually care about America and want to be part of it and
Hmm.
truly want to be Americans. That's always that's always the thing is right. Nobody's ever talking about them when we're talking about immigration in the macro sense,
Yeah.
right? Because it's such a tiny group,
Hmm.
um, and it wouldn't be like that. Like in a more ideal situation, you could have immigration from all sorts of different countries, right? A small level of immigration, and it wouldn't affect the country as a
Hmm.
whole,
Hmm.
right? And when you have a small enough level of immigration, it would necessarily incentivize assimilation for those groups,
Right.
right?
Right.
That's what it would do.
Hmm.
And that's the only way, because right, what Sam's doing here is like swimming upstream, right? He's doing it all in hard mode,
Hmm. I
because
think this
easy
isn't.
mode is hating America, and
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Exactly.
you get rewarded for that.
Exactly. I think this is an underrated point. When we talk about assimilation, like people want to assimilate to, the world that was the American world that was created in the 1970s and 1980s. But that's a
Yeah,
dangerous type of assimilation because I
yeah,
actually don't belong in that America. You know,
no,
I, I, I,
neither do I.
I
Yeah, yeah,
like that's like when there was that meme going around, like, what kind of American are you? Like, and I posted Charles Lindbergh. Like my
yeah.
mindset is like 1940s. Before, like, I have no.
Pre World War II. Yeah,
Yeah, pre World War II America. And so yeah,
yeah,
that's the problem with assimilation. In fact, what they're trying to do right now, what Taylor Swift is about, what all this international
yeah.
capital is about, is getting my kids to assimilate to the new America.
Well,
I
that's just
am
it.
not.
Like,
You know what
the
I mean?
problem
Yeah.
the problem of assimilation is assimilating our people to the American way of life that existed until globo homo took over in the mid 20th century, right?
Hmm.
Assimilating everyone to actual America,
Hmm.
right? That's the greater chance, whether they're born here or not, but especially if they're born here and from here,
Yeah.
assimilating them, because that's the entire globalist project, is deracinating all of humanity from their historic ways of life,
Right.
right? Not just in America, but globally,
Hmm.
and turning them into billions of Swifties, like you said. Right?
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
that's the point, right? That's the entire point. Is just modal consumers,
yeah.
right? Is what they want, and so that's exactly it. Like it even like, do we even still have that culture left? I mean, I think we do, but it is so suppressed and
Yeah.
isolated, and
So,
it's here in little flashes and starts and things like that,
mhm.
but it's not widespread anymore.
This is like another reason, like just in my own life, think about leaving California. California, where I live, there's not a lot of like crime or like gay movement stuff. It's not Hollywood or it's not the Bay Area, but it is like so hyper consumeristic. There's so much prosperity here that there's just absolutely zero interest culturally in returning to trad America. And like, so my interest in leaving California is not because of the crime or any of that
Mhm.
stuff. I mean, even the minority presence is relatively smaller compared to other parts of California, but there's just it's like the entire culture here is like Ben Shapiro. Like that's
Yeah,
Republican Party Ben Shapiro. And it's like it's so obnoxious basically. When I went to
yeah,
Arkansas, there are people who are like have in fact a lot of them mentally just haven't even left trad America. So
yeah,
like there
yeah.
there is that presence in the heartland, and I'm far more interested in preserving that than I am in building a new Charlie Kirk outlet or something.
This is a good one here. On the topic of Vivek, we've talked
Mhm.
about Vivek before. We did with Nate Fisher. We had a good episode there. It took off that's our most downvoted episode we've ever had, because a lot of people in India watched it and they didn't like what we had to say.
That's funny.
Like, I looked at the metrics of it. It was like all these cities in India are watching it. That's cool. They didn't they didn't like that we were anti I mean, we weren't super anti Vivek. We were just opposing what he had to say about meritocracy. And on this point, I mean, some of it is like, you have to understand Vivek
I don't
is
know. I'm like cautious about him. I wish I mean he's hilariously bold.
oh yeah,
Um
yeah. I like him. I like him,
yeah.
and he's entertaining. And like, I saw the town hall a clip of the town hall where he's talking about like J6, and
Uh-huh.
the 90 IQ interviewer just kept talking over him about, like, there's no evidence that the government was involved. There's no evidence. And he's like, when Congress questioned the FBI, they didn't say that there were no FBI agents there. They just refused to say how many.
Yeah.
Like, and so, like, obviously they were there. That's all the evidence you need.
Mhm.
Um, but I mean, he did really well on that, and the way he framed it. Right, he's a salesman, right?
Mhm.
That's I mean, I think that's why, like, he and Trump are, stand out, not just because they say things that are outside the GOP, boilerplate stuff. It's also that they are good at framing things from the standpoint of like a guy selling a product,
Mhm.
um, and they're good at it. And so the way he framed that is like, okay, if you told me about J6 in 2021 and said that it's, the government's involved in it, and it was entrapment and things like that. He said, I would have thought that was crazy. But then you look at the fact that they withheld all of the footage of of what happened, and all the videos of the police letting people in, like waving them inside. And when you find out about like the Gretchen Whitmer plot, and that was 100% entrapment,
Mhm.
and the jury of the men that were tried, all of them, voted not guilty, because they saw the evidence of what happened. And it's the same FBI that is involved in January 6th, like same department of the FBI.
Mhm.
And so, right, he's framing this, and like, and is very, very persuasive. And like, remember, he's in like enemy territory. He's in CNN, right, town hall, and like CNN viewers watching him. And he acquitted himself very well. But the problem with Vivek is, right, this is kind of the thing of who he is, and is he is saying everything that we want to hear, right? And he's carefully crafted a message of everything that we want to hear, because he knows that's what we want to hear. Right?
Yeah.
Does
Yeah.
he actually believe anything he's saying? I don't know. I don't know at all.
Yeah. So it's like it is funny, like even with Trump, like we keep relying on these like international capitalist, like cosmopolitan, rootless cosmopolitan types from the coasts to save us. So
Yeah.
it's like it's fine to get on board with his message and consider him a general positive. I mean, just the fact that now we're allowed to say great replacement on mainstream media.
Yeah,
I
because
mean,
he said it, like he
thank you for
brought
your
it up.
service. Thank you for your
Yeah.
service. Like seriously, that's good. That's a
Yeah.
good positive force. Whether it's going to actually be, whether he's actually someone that we should rally around politically, it doesn't really matter. He's
No.
like, it's not what we need someone from the heartland. We need a Dusty Devers. We need people
Yeah.
like this. That's the
Yeah,
thing that's
exactly.
gonna,
That's
yeah.
something we should talk about too is Dusty's victory this week. But again, yeah, like the same thing with Trump. I mean, some of it is like the primary is over. Trump's won. It's done. I mean, and so I'm not so interested in questions. Even like when people, and I'll bring up DeSantis, and I know people will be upset. It's like, oh no, I love DeSantis. He's the guy. Um, it's over. I mean, Trump's
Mhm,
the guy, whether you want him to be or not. And
mhm.
so now it's time to begin thinking in terms of the election, going forward from that standpoint.
Yeah, and you can't think in terms of what is Trump going to do? How is he going to change the way that he did things from last time? You have to think he's a vehicle. He's a
Yeah,
catalyst for you to express your actual political will. So that's what Trump has
yeah,
to be to you. He's not the solution. He's probably going to hire Jared Kushner again. Did you see that? So it's not Trump. It's what Trump means. It's Trump as a repudiation of the narratives. That's what
yeah,
Trump is for.
yeah. Exactly, exactly. Let's see. Let me. We get a lot of questions here. Let's see here. Oh, this is a good one. For me, you could talk about this too, CJ. Even though this is not your particular view on preterism in general. Although I think you probably have some, or you've like at least been delving into
Well, no, I have preterist
some of
views
it.
on
Yeah,
like on a lot of like what like Jesus in Matthew
like
24.
Matthew 24. Yeah,
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 I take your view on all that for
yeah.
sure. Yeah,
Well, I,
yeah.
I think, and I think like a lot of like Amil guys do
Mhm.
when you're reading the New Testament. It's like how else can you read it? Well, I mean, once the destruction of Jerusalem is in your head, right? And you're reading the New Testament in light of what happened in 70 AD. It's hard not to think about it in those terms, right?
Mhm.
You can't pretend that didn't happen, or that it did happen, but it's insignificant and unimportant. Um, and a lot of, I mean, I think the thing for me, the thing that led me to the partial preterist views that I have on the New Testament is actually like beginning to understand the Old Testament and the Old Covenant system, um uh, eh, and just delving into that deeply, right? Understanding how significant and meaningful it was to
Yeah,
God's plan in the world,
I think
and
the
that
partial.
coming to an end is a
Yeah,
huge deal, much bigger
exactly.
deal than people make it.
It actually makes like a lot of sense. Like I mean, it's almost like not even an eschatological point. It's like if you study the dynamic, the relationship between the covenants,
Yeah,
you can see a lot of like there's a continuity between that and then Jesus's teachings there, and you can kind of
yeah,
see that just the collapse of the old world and the creation of the new right there. Like
yeah,
you can. It's just so obvious once you just study um, covenant theology.
yeah,
In any
exactly.
of its various types. I mean, the relationship between
Yeah,
the two does a lot to give foundation to his views there. I mean, what Jesus was saying was literally that all these things that you see, this is the periphery of your entire sociological world, and it's over.
yeah,
It's over right
yeah.
now. You're going to see it end.
It is
That's
coming to an end.
it
Yeah,
makes
and
way more sense than this weird like present tense conversation about 1,000 years in the future situation. I just can't make
well,
sense of that.
it neatly it brings things to a neat and uniform end, right? In the sense that, right, if you don't have a very strong view of 70 AD and the meaning of the destruction of the temple, um and that's just kind of a historical footnote, right? and not a big deal. Then it's like, well, what exactly happened to the old covenant? Is it still in operation in some way? Is it kind of hanging out there somewhere? And a lot of like the premillennial dispensational view, which is the majority view in evangelicalism today, a lot of that it is kind of nebulous, where it's like, oh, is it still kind of exist? I don't really know. It's still kind of hanging out there somewhere. Whereas here, it's like that's the conclusive end. It's over. It's done. And so to this question here, how do you guard against it? I think some of it is I didn't come at, like you said, um, a preterist view of much of the New Testament from an eschatological standpoint,
Right.
where I'm trying to prove a system of eschatology. I'm trying to understand covenant theology,
Right.
right? And so it doesn't cause me to think then, well, I guess that means everything is fulfilled in the New Testament, right? Where it's like, no, well, no, it's not. Like the resurrection of the dead hasn't happened yet, right?
Right.
And so I think a lot of the time people get into full preterism because it's only an eschatological thing, right? It's only to try to figure out the seeming eschatological passages in the New Testament and try to decipher them, and using 70 AD as the decoder ring, and then you start to view everything
Hmm.
as unlocked with that decoder ring, rather than saying, okay, here's what historic Christianity has always said about the resurrection of the dead
Yeah,
and so
exactly.
forth, and then you're able to hold to the creeds. It's never something that you're even really tempted by.
Yeah. Let's get to this question. You and
Oh,
I are seasoned fathers of
well,
daughters.
of
We're
of young, yeah, well, at least of
we're
young.
we're in
My
the
oldest
process.
daughter's 9. Yeah, so
We're
ask
in
me
the
in like
process
10
of
years.
being. We're in the process of being seasoned. But for
Yeah,
first
we're
time fathers, um,
you know,
yeah, I think my advice is don't take advice from the internet. You
yeah,
know,
at all.
like
Yeah.
also trust your gut. Don't listen to the experts. That's like my biggest advice. Like to anybody who
Mhm.
asks, is don't just trust your gut, and also don't overthink it. Babies are
Yeah.
actually. It's not quite true, but there's this meme like the elites don't want you to hear this, but kids are actually free. It's not quite true, but like
Yeah.
you don't need
Yeah,
to
yeah, yeah.
pay for all this stuff. You don't need to have like special baby food and like special equipment. You don't need to take them to the doctor once a week. Like it's actually really easy.
Yeah.
Just don't overthink it. That's my thing. And we're very much my wife and I are very much like natural. Like we don't really participate in much of anything in corporate America, especially related to our kids. So I'm coming that from a very biased perspective, and maybe you're not as extreme as I am, but I would just say trust your gut and don't be first in line to obeying what the experts tell you need to do.
Yeah, I think that's a good one. I think also too, um, there isn't like a lot of people want to look for a like a rule book of here are the rules of how to raise a child and follow this formula and your
Like a
kids will turn
manual.
out
Yeah.
if you follow this. And that's not that doesn't work at all. I mean, a lot of it because every single child is different. And so I would and what we've tried to do is recognize that each of our kids is different, and what kids tend to do um is they reveal who you are to the entire world,
Hmm.
and what you're good at and what you're bad at, and where you're faithful and working really hard and where you're lazy. And so it when you have children, it forces you to examine yourself and to be a lot better than you are, and it forces and it reveals just how selfish and narcissistic you are, and especially a lot of it is like our entire society is conditioned for you to encourage you to be narcissistic
Hmm.
and self-interested, and the act of having a child is like just rebellion against that. But all of that is still there, where you like wake up and realize like I have another human being I'm taking care of and responsible for, and that child forces you to learn to begin to be less selfish, and so I would say just uh, be aware of that and lean into that more, and think about these things, because like it's so much easier to with anything to do the path of least resistance,
Yeah.
and with especially with children,
Hmm.
and you have to be conscious of, all right, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do the easiest thing. Like the easiest thing for people today with their kids is like just, you take them out to eat and they're fussy or whatever. Like here's an iPad to pacify
Right.
you while we're
Yeah,
at
yeah,
dinner.
yeah.
Like
You're gonna
like
regret that, by
resolve,
the way.
do not do that. Like
You're gonna
resolve to
regret
not
that.
do those things. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you're gonna regret, like, seriously, like, I
Yeah.
can't emphasize that enough. It's like, it's such an easy way to handle the situation, but you will regret it. You're training and wiring their brain when you do
Yeah.
things like that. Don't do it.
And that's like a synecdoche for like everything in parenting, modern
Yeah,
parenting today
for sure.
is do not follow the path of least resistance whatsoever. I mean, you
Mhm.
see that with like the medical stuff where it's like, oh, just sign up for whatever the pediatrician tells you to do. It's
Mhm.
like, no, we're not gonna. We're gonna do our own
Yeah,
research. We're gonna we're gonna do
yeah,
what we feel is best for our child, even if it's harder,
yeah.
right? Same thing with like homeschooling and
Especially
everything
with,
else.
like family pressures,
Yeah,
that's that
yeah.
that gets a little bit, sticky for sure.
Oh, absolutely. And so, I mean, resolve to, right, this is your family. You're going to do what you're going to do no matter what anybody else says. And you're going to do things the hard way if you have to, because the
Mhm.
hard way in trash world is the best way.
Yeah.
Um so that's all I got for parent. I mean, I could say way more, but at the same time it's like, we're just two randos on the internet
Oh,
with
yeah,
kids.
yeah, but
You know?
that's the other thing
Like,
is
we're internet people too, like, don't listen to us.
no, no, for sure, and that's the other thing about it too, is, like, you literally make it up as you go, so to speak.
Yeah,
Like, I don't have any instruction manual, I'm learning as I go, and it's
yeah.
just that's just how you have to do it, and that's the best way to do it too. So, alright, Andrew, new question. What do you got?
Well, I mean, I do happen to own a pair of pit vipers, that I bought a few years ago. So, that's fun. I
Do they
guess,
have
just
summer? Do they have summer where you live?
it's very brief. It lasts a couple weeks.
Uh-huh.
And, yeah, yeah, it's, you wanna do things that are just a little bit dangerous,
Mhm.
right? That's what you do for the WBS, right?
Yeah.
You want to do things that are a little dangerous, a little wild, and fun,
Mhm.
right? It's about having fun. That's
Mhm.
that's how about you, CJ? How do you how do you
Man,
celebrate?
well, it's all about jumping, like, who can
Right.
it's out
This
competing
is
each.
this is
Go ahead.
our Kwanzaa, by the way. This is our Kwanzaa and Black History
Yeah,
Month is how how we
yeah.
celebrate.
It's for us, it's for us, it's you and the boys have to go out, to the river and see who can jump off the highest rock into the river, off the cliff there.
That's
It's
right.
a little
Yeah.
friendly competition, and that inaugurates, summer, and the earlier you do it, you have to brave the colder water, but, that's part of whiteboard summer, so that's it.
Yeah, here's this is one here too about the book of Revelation. I think the little book in Revelation, and I'm persuaded of this, and I don't know how much, how deep I want to, get into the details here, but the little book in Revelation is the scroll that um that Daniel sealed up at the end of the book of Daniel, right? So he has this scroll and he's told to seal it up and write these things down, and then we never hear about it again the rest of the Bible,
Mhm.
right? And it's like, huh, that's interesting. I guess we'll just forget about that. Or is it, all right, here's this scroll that's been sealed up that now is unsealed and John is reading, right? That makes a lot more sense. So is the little scroll, I don't know if it's the same as Ezekiel. But I definitely identify it as the one in the book of Daniel. Um excuse me.
This guy's kind of a troll, though. I'm surprised you took his question.
That's all right. I appreciate some trolling. It's okay.
Yeah, yeah.
That's cool.
Here, yeah.
What is
Let's see.
Wesley? That's cool. Uh, anyway,
There was another good, yeah, so let's see. Oh, yeah, what do you think about this?
1 in 5 voters admitted to committing some form of voter fraud. I didn't see this.
I
This
didn't
is
either. Surprising,
this is
actually, that
this
many.
is yeah, this is interesting. 1 out of 5 voters admitted to committing some form. So, I mean, does that entail like
Well, let's change.
Um,
Let's use this to talk about just real quick, like 30 seconds of Josh Abatoy's questions. Is it politically legitimate for us to counter all the election fraud, like just hypothetically, um with a like how would I say it carefully, with a tactic of our own to approach electioneering? Is that like somehow immoral?
um, is it immoral? Right.
I I I,
I think when
I
the
have no
toothpaste is out of
hesitation.
the
I have
yeah,
no
when the toothpaste is
hesitation
out
on
of the
this.
tube, man, like when one side is
To
doing it, I mean, it's
war,
kind of
yeah.
like when you're at war
Hmm.
and the other side says, you know, we're not going to take prisoners. Anyone who surrenders, we're gonna shoot. Um, you don't have a moral duty to not respond in kind, right? You don't say, oh, we're better than the other side. We're not going to do that,
Hmm.
right? Once the other side, like that's why you had rules of war, at least in post Westphalian nations,
Hmm.
right? That was universally recognized. And I mean, it's a hallmark of Christendom too. Um, like that's why you had these rules, not because you're right. You thought, oh, we care so much about the dignity of human life that we're not going to do these things. I mean, that's also a consideration. I mean, that's why it existed. But you did that because you respected the other side because you didn't want them doing that to your guys.
Hmm.
And so if in the proxy warfare that is electoral democracy, if they're not going to abide by the rules of war, then you don't have any moral reason to abide by those rules either.
Right.
Right. That's now I'm not, again, I want to caveat this by saying I'm not telling people to go commit crimes. That's illegal. Don't do it.
Hmm.
Don't do anything. We are against breaking the law on the Contra Mundum podcast, 100% against it. So
Hmm.
don't anything we say here. We're not saying break the law. Don't do that. Even like with the Satan statue thing, it's like, well, that's the law. He broke it, and he's going to face trial and probably get convicted. I hope he doesn't.
Yeah.
I would vote to acquit if I was on the jury,
Hmm.
but we still have a system of law. There's some semblance of order. I mean, it's very very fragile right now.
Yeah.
But
It's not even about like yeah. It's also about just you don't want to. It's stupid to like go out to an army that's against you with a knife and just like, yeah, I'm gonna get them, and then you're dead. Like it
yeah,
doesn't help
exactly.
anybody. It doesn't help anybody to be stupid. It doesn't help your family to go chaotic. You have to be strategic minded. So let me answer this question too. Um, because I see this question as sort of like it's sort of an analogy of leaving the entire 20th century ideological paradigm. I think libertarian, like I've expressed this multiple times. I think libertarianism is all the instincts of like Enlightenment philosophy taken to their logical conclusion.
Yeah,
So so for me, I mean, on one hand, you could say like they're trying to trans our kids. Like, let's not even like, why are we talking about like the privatization of outer space? Like, you know what I mean?
yeah.
On one hand, there's that. Like, we need to like be realistic about what's happening. On the other hand, I began to realize that society and political society is not an ideological construct. It's not a blueprint. We're not sitting here drawing out the ideal system. Um, Everything is a given. This is the old Burkean approach to things. Everything is a given. Society and the social order is a given. It's something that we find ourselves involved in, and we have to take part in it. So you can't approach political problems in terms of creating the ideal system. You have to approach political problems in light of the structures that are already there and participating in those. So I think I shifted from an idealistic view of political theory to a realistic view of political
Mhm.
theory. And I think that's the difference between authentic conservatism and things like classical liberalism and libertarianism. I think that shift right there. And that's why neoconservatives are actually more liberal than they are conservative, because they think of things in terms of like ideals and changing the world, making it a better place, things like that. I don't think in those terms anymore. I think of what's good for my people. I think in terms of what's good for the way of life that I love and I'm committed to. And that's sort of like the beginning of my shift away from libertarianism. It's just this rejection of blueprint, idealistic thinking toward a more realistic approach to things. And the thing about realism is going back thousands of years, everything's always been about realism. Everything's always been about like, man considering where he is in light of the society and the social structures around him and taking part in that. And that's kind of how life has always been. This is like what Burke said. This was Burke's criticism of the French Revolution and Thomas Paine. You can't start over from scratch. You have to build upon what you have, and you have to preserve it, because once you tear down the structures, you're not going to get utopia. You're going to get dystopia. And that's always been like, this was Joseph de Maistre in France. This is the entire counter-revolutionary point of view, is that you cannot think in terms of starting from scratch. You can't be little like Rousseau's. You have to think in terms of preserving what you have. And we live in an age where conserving the institutions is a stupid idea. But even still, you can't burn it all to the ground and start over with this ideal system. You have to realize that you have to engage in political struggle. So that was kind of a brief.
Yeah, I think I probably went the same direction for the same reasons that you did too. Even though it's not a question for me, nobody cares what they only care about CJay. But because you're much more articulate and than I am. But it was the same thing like with like foreign policy, where I still think like libertarians are largely really really good on at least critiquing it and analyzing it. But ultimately, foreign policy decisions are not made in the idealistic realm, where it's not like, okay, what's the best possible thing? What is the ideal, like, what is the principle that we should use to do X, Y, or Z? They're in the realm of realism, where it's like, here's the political power we have. Here's the world power that we have in geopolitics. All right, how do we defend it? Right. What is the right thing to do? I mean, just like when we talked about like Kissinger last week, right? It's a question of, right. It's not a question of, okay, is bombing Cambodia good or bad? Right. Well, in a vacuum, of course, bombing Cambodia is very bad. You're killing a lot of people, but it's not in a vacuum, right? It's not ceteris paribus, right? It's not all things being equal. You have this massive war with communism that you are trying to get out of, and that's bleeding you dry. How do you achieve victory while getting out? Right. That's the question. So it's things like that. And it's the same thing with like, approaching like withdrawal from Afghanistan is similar, right? How do you get out of there? I think actually Trump did a very good job where they negotiated peace for Afghanistan, where they essentially allowed the Taliban to take over without killing everybody and negotiate an end to the war, while still actually maintaining a very small American troop presence there in like Bagram Air Base, and that was it. And that could have lasted for 100 years, right? It wouldn't have been onerous to the American people or to Afghanistan for that matter. It would have been like a Guantanamo Bay sort of situation, which is what it is. You have to deal with reality as it is rather than how you wish it would be. And so Thomas has one for me now. Let's see what he has. For me, what is your assessment of what Lightheart and Woods are trying to do with their ecclesiocentric post-liberalism? Yeah, I think that's a good question. I think, I mean, I'm not, I mean, some guys are very rancorous about this, and think it's nuts and insane and very bad. I get what they're trying to do. I don't think I necessarily agree, because I don't. I think I probably agree with Wolf at this point on ecclesiocentrism. But at the same time, I don't. I understand it, especially from like this post-millennial perspective, and from like Peter's his Reformed Catholic perspective, where he wants the Catholicity of the church, and that's his big priority, which it should be. He's a pastor and a theologian. And so I didn't know that. Oh, Thomas says Leiter is positive towards Schmidt. Apparently, that's send me, Thomas, if you can send me where Peter has said that. I'm not shocked by this, but I'm heartened by it. But I think it's a question of, more so of, right. What is the priority of the church? right? It should be it should be promoting the unity of the church and the church's place in society. And although I would maybe disagree, and maybe I should read what Woods has been saying lately, because I haven't read James Woods stuff as much. So maybe send me some more things so I can comment more and parse it some more. Um
Let me do this one real quick.
oh yeah, go ahead.
Um, but like, this is actually an interesting question. I mean, how I interpreted this was like, um, is it a narrative that the German like Nazi party, the people involved, were they like sort of influenced by like paganism and like and all that, or were they like regard like I'm not talking about revisionism stuff. Like, do you think that this was just like allied propaganda, or do you think this was real? I haven't really studied it. There's an interesting book that shows that some of them were into this. I wonder if some of them were it was kind of like the meme of their time, like where they were just so desperate to capture something from history, because there were obviously some of them were like Christian and some of them were against this stuff. Um, what's the guy like von Papen or whatever his name was? He was kind of like a traditional Catholic, you know. So some of them had that, but I do wonder if this you know, whether there was like a pagan presence in their thinking. Have you studied this at all?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, I think there was. And so part of it is, you know, it's sort of similar to like what a lot of like Wignats and stuff do today, where they um they want guys to go back to the religion of our ancestors, which was like Norse religion and worshiping Odin and Thor and things like that. So there was I think there really was a recovery project in Germany in the early 20th century of Germanic paganism. I don't think it's just a troll. But I think it's much more overblown because a lot of people want to say that it was totally dominated by paganism. Like I think you know, the main guy himself was you know, more or less thoroughly occultic and pagan in his views, in his religious views. But I mean, so many like so many myths and lies regarding the middle of the 20th century that it's hard to know what is propaganda and what is legitimate.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's, I think, the kind of the root of this question. But I think, I mean, some of it too is like within the context of like 20 or 19th century and 20th century religion in Germany. You have to bear into mind, like they were much more advanced in their or not necessarily secularism, but in the de-Christianizing tendencies of all the Christian institutions in Germany,
Mm-hmm.
that atheism and unbelief had really taken a toll
Mm-hmm.
on them, and was massively exacerbated by the First World War. And that there was a crisis of faith throughout all of Western Europe after the First World War, right?
Right.
I mean, I think we do not adequately um, give credit to or understand just how devastating that conflict was, not just in material terms and economic terms, but in like spiritual and psychological terms.
Yeah.
That it is we'll get to this one in a second.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Jonathan. Um that that I mean, this industrialized warfare, the first time really ever that you have this mass industrialized warfare where millions of people are fighting and dying and being blown to bits all at once for years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I could see how that would rattle people's faith in God and in the transcendent, where and you just become mere materialists, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's a reason why that happened. So I think it was like ripe ground for reasserting a religion of dominance that is historic. Plus, when your identity as a people is being attacked, you go as far as you can to recover what you view as your identity. So they would go back to that. So that's part of it. Even like the symbol of the swastika is was a was an Indo-European symbol that was that's all over the place, right? That's why they adopted it, right,
Right.
as an emblem of Germanic peoples.
Yeah.
And so yeah, I think I think maybe it's overblown for propaganda purposes, but it's absolutely was there for
Mhm.
sure.
I
Um,
agree. I agree. All right, Andrew,
which one is superior?
put your gloves
Well,
on.
what? How are we determining superiority?
Yeah, I know.
One,
It's
we have a lake called Lake Superior. So that
ooh,
should solve the
ouch,
question right there.
uppercut.
You don't have that. You have an ocean. You have a peaceful ocean.
Peaceful.
Yeah, the Pacific
Peaceful.
Ocean. Yeah,
Yeah, it's not peaceful.
yeah.
It's not
It's
peaceful.
named Lake
Is that what it's?
Superior. Superior though. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Um, I think it's just funny. Like I love America. Like there's
Yeah.
so many great places here. It's so it's hard to like have the. I mean, obviously, like I'm personally attached to California in a way that Andrew's personally attached to Minnesota. The history of this country is just so fascinating, and like it's hard to find like superior states and inferior states. Although the East Coast is basically inferior, like New
There's some
Jersey,
inferior states.
in Jersey, yeah.
I can find you some.
um, but for real, like California. The thing about California is like, and there's mountains everywhere, but the Sierra Nevadas where I live, I know I harp on this all the time. I can literally go within 45 minutes up to the top of the Sierra Nevadas in like Lake Tahoe, one of the most beautiful places in the world. Or I can go an hour the other way to the West Coast and enjoy, the beautiful seagulls and the ocean. And it's like California's natural beauty
Yeah.
is, it's just something that instills, like inspiration in a very heavenly way for me. And California can't be beaten in that regard.
Yeah.
In regards to its history, I mean, California was always the place where the cowboys, the Westerners, the miners, a lot of outlaws. It's a very heroic place. It's where you would go to literally, you have to depend on your own strength and your own creativity, and there's no the culture of the welfare state was never part of California history. You're literally on your own, and you're literally at war with everybody. It's a very heroic, courageous, masculine history. And it's
Yeah.
funny that the way that California has transformed from that to like the most coddled, technologically addicted, feminine, feminine, emotional place on earth. It's crazy the transformation that's happened. So current day California as a whole is one of the worst places in the world. It's like the engine that drives, the
Yeah.
American cultural regime.
Yeah.
And Minnesota has its problems right now with like immigration and sort of the leftward trends there, but nothing compared to how bad California has gotten in its cultural hubs.
Yeah.
So it's like, how do you compare these two? They're different. I mean, you have a lot of interesting history that
Mhm.
I love. Like I love like Little House on the Prairie. I love all that stuff. Like immensely
Mhm.
the history there. The history of California is just different than that. It was unsettled in a way that Minnesota wasn't. So it's hard to compare the two. Culturally, we're definitely different.
Very different. Yeah.
Like So anyway, do you have any comments on all that?
Yeah, I mean, I think, like, in terms of natural beauty, I mean, Minnesota definitely has it, too, though it's different, right?
Hmm.
The North Woods in Minnesota is spectacular. Going up there in the fall is gorgeous. Um, and where I'm from in southern Minnesota, it's not naturally beautiful. It's nothing but cornfields, right? It's cornfields and soybeans, and 100 years ago, it'd be wheat,
Hmm.
mostly. Which, I mean, there's a beauty there too, but it's
Sure.
to say that, to compare that to Lake Tahoe, yeah, even
Yeah,
I
yeah.
couldn't do that.
Cheap
But
shot.
I think the culturally, the differences. I mean, going back to like Minnesota culture, I mean, you had that too, where I liked it. Like near my home, there is this a farm, called place called Farm America, which is just it's a heritage historic site where they have like the different iterations of farmhouses in Minnesota, and like you go to like the sod house that they have there, and you think about, all right, people came here with nothing, and they built these houses out of sod, and they survived winters that I live in, and have the luxury of natural gas heat. They survived that in a sod hut. All right, and the kind of toughness that my ancestors had to settle this place
Yeah.
is astounding, is absolutely remarkable. And like culturally, there is, because of the like German and Scandinavian peoples that came here, there was a much more of a communitarian spirit, which sounds like commie gobbledygook. But the reality is, like, in order to survive a winter like this, you have to have other people. You have to rely on other people. You can't totally be on your own, right? You can't be the mountain man. You need other people, especially in a hostile territory where there are Sioux Indians that might want to kill you and sometimes did.
Right.
Um, and so and that communitarian spirit, or that spirit of like real community, of people that live for each other, which you can have on the micro level, right? In the macro level, it's chaos and
Yeah,
disorder and
well, the
destruction.
funny thing is that's probably what led to California's, moral disarray because everything was so individualistic. It was fine at a time, and Teddy Roosevelt was over here all the time talking about the strenuous life because California is a great place to find to meet your physical, capacity and to grow yourself in that way psychologically and physically. But
Mhm.
when you have something that's so dependent on individuality without the community roots, look at California now. I mean, that's what happens.
Yes, exactly. And I guess, to answer the next question that I have up here on the screen, like the old Minnesota flag, which was the first iteration of it was from like I think like 1897, and has been around for until this year, when the stupid Maoists in my state government decided to get rid of it. You have a farmer working a plow, and then there's an Indian on a horse in the background. That's why I want to get rid of it, is because it's not nice to the Native Americans. Right. That's why that's the rationale. But it actually it shows,
I
right,
I will never ever
the spirit of
understand that.
Minnesota. Yeah, oh,
I
it's
will
not.
never like, it makes the Indians look based. You know what I mean?
Oh, I know exactly. And he's just on a horse riding around, in the background. Um.
I actually love Native American things, personally.
Oh
You do
yeah.
too, probably, like, it's part of your cultural heritage, you know?
Oh yeah. Absolutely, it is.
Yeah, yeah,
And so like, um, it's part of it's part of what Minnesota is, and California too. It's part
yeah,
of
yeah,
what
yeah.
all of America is, right? That the aspect of both, conflict and living among
Yeah, for
um
sure.
the native peoples here.
Yeah,
And so a lot of it is just we want to pretend our history is all evil and horrible and bad. But it's like, well, we brought, European civilization to the New World and built the most powerful country in human history. Sorry. Uh, like, while tribes are just, butchering each other for, forever, beforehand.
yeah.
Um, all right, you go ahead and, yeah, take this one, CJ.
Yeah, so, how can we stop our wonderful places from being invaded by fast food and suburban housing developments? These are different things. So fast food, you just have to stop buying it, and this is hard because it's made to be addicting.
Yeah.
But you literally have to get together and grow your own stuff and find alternatives. You can find ways of shipping good meat to you, and but it's also good. It's a good financial practice too to stop buying. My brother and I call it the singularity food. But you just stop buying this. Stop buying singularity food. And literally like train yourself. Like when I was dieting, people are like, how do you afford like the grass-fed meat? How do you afford to shop organic? It's like I literally eat like a couple carrots, a thing of yogurt, and some meat a day. It's actually cheaper, but you have to
Yeah.
discipline yourself. It requires discipline to do it. So that's easier, I think, because people. Although you can't change the masses. The masses. These foods are made for them. It's like fast food is not downstream from people's preferences. It's people's preferences are downstream from like institutional singularity food.
Yeah,
They're
exactly.
so it's hard in that sense. The suburban housing developments is harder because you actually have to be more politically aware. Those are political problems. Those are the result of lobbyists. Those are the result of people making deals with the state. So that's a lot more difficult. I think those are very harmful for community, for cultural continuity, for maintaining some sort of connectivity to the past. that's a lot more dangerous in the long term, because when you build this housing development, you have to have the fast food, you have to have the shops, you have to have the shopping centers, you have to bring in people from out of the area to fill those housing developments. It's not the host people that are moving into the suburban developments, it's people
No.
from outside the area. So the suburban housing developments are more dangerous, in my opinion, and they're a lot more politically difficult to address. The other difficulty with it is like the Republican Party is much more on board with those things, So those are Republican endeavors, and so I don't really have like a long term solution other than you have to be more radical in your politics. So I don't know. I don't have a good answer for that. Maybe flee like what I'm doing. Like I live in California, and like around the Sacramento area, it's become like just mass singularityville with
Yeah.
all this housing developments. And so, yeah, I might have to go to Arkansas or something. So,
Well, there is, I think some of it too is, I mean, this is a question of, like you said, like what can an individual do against sociological and political trends
right.
that are totally outside your control?
Hmm.
Um, and so you could do what you can as an individual. And so some of it is, yeah, maybe leave. One of the things that is beginning to happen, and I have some knowledge of this that I can maybe share at a later date. But people are beginning to build intentional communities in places, and I'm not talking like communes and stupid things like that, but like people going to a place and settling and building new towns, right? That is a thing that is beginning to happen. I think going to happen a lot more is building towns, building. I mean, it's almost like taking advantage of the subdevelopment uh, uh, framework and using it against itself. Like it's taking the next question I want to answer is the one on Tolkien. It's like taking the ring and using it, right? But really, like taking it and building your town, but then being able to um uphold right traditional culture and way of life of that area and having it very strictly enforced, right? We're not going to have strip malls, we're not going to have fast food in these
Hmm.
places. We are going
Hmm.
to we'll only have mom and pop shops in this town, and that's all
Hmm.
we're going to like taking control of like zoning and just zoning like crazy that you can't have this and making it very onerous for big global corps to come in
Hmm.
and do that. Like one of the things that some towns do, like I maybe some of our friends in Pella are in the are watching this right now, but like Pella, Iowa, right? Any global corp thing that wants to come in, they make them have a storefront that looks like Holland, right?
Yeah.
Like traditional Dutch, architecture. So like they put up massive barriers to these people coming in. They still have it. They still have a Taco Bell and a Chick-fil-A and things like that, but you're going to have a lot less of it if you put up those kind of barriers,
Hmm.
right? And you're only going to have like the highest quality, like Chick-fil-A, which still is bad and it's full of seed oils. So don't, my wife is watching this. She loves Chick-fil-A and it's like, no more, we're not doing that anymore. Um, but yeah, that's part of it is whatever you as an individual or even banding together with smaller groups do. Yeah, this is, uh, I would say, probably a pub 500. That's where I went last time with Jonathan. So that's that's
Yeah.
I'm a creature of habit. Uh, that's the answer to that one. But the next question here,
Okay.
uh,
I won't answer it.
you don't want to answer this one?
No, you took it down. This one.
Oh, this one.
Yes.
Oh, for
Is it?
both. Oh, sorry, it's for both of us.
Yes.
Yeah.
No,
So
it's
yeah,
okay. No, nobody will know. It's a little local place called the Tin Lantern. It's just tucked away in my little mountain town, so that's where I would
yeah.
go.
I'm going to get lunch with Jonathan in like an hour. So that's
Oh, once again, I have not been invited.
yeah. Sorry. Next time. Next time. Um,
What was the other one? The Tolkien one. Let's do the
the
Tolkien one.
Tolkien one. Oh, sorry. Yeah. I didn't realize he was asking you too because he's not going to have lunch with you today, unfortunately. Um, So, yeah, what would you say to the fact that Tolkien thought it important to the preservation of the Western soul to maintain the pre-Christian mythos and folklore? Do I have him misunderstood? No, I think that's more or less accurate. Wouldn't you agree? That's more or less accurate
Oh yeah, for
Tolkien.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
In fact, I wrote an article on this a couple months ago, a couple articles ago, but also a couple months ago.
Did you actually
Um,
publish it? Is the question.
it's
Did you publish?
published. It's published.
Oh, it is. Okay.
It's called Tolkien in the West, I think. But yeah,
Okay.
no, he like you can't. This is the problem with like what Disney's doing with all of its it's new renditions of all the like these are Germanic stories. These are Anglo-Saxon heritage that have been Christianized. I have a really cool book called Disney and Europe, and like these are European tales. They belong to us. They belong to our history, and that's part of the
Yeah, Snow
subversion.
White, Cinderella, and The Little
Yeah,
Mermaid,
The Little
and
Mermaid, like that's part of the subversion. So yes, you absolutely have to have and that's part of it. People make fun of Christianity. They're like, Christmas is just a pagan holiday that's been Christianized. It's like, yes. Yes, we Christianized it. And if you don't stop, we'll Christianize more of your stuff. Like
yeah, yeah.
that's what
You're taking
Christianity
Toyotas
is.
on next. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so but yeah, no, I absolutely agree with Tolkien, hands down. This is like his it, you know, this is his Catholicity in the broad universal sense coming to fruition. He's not an evangelical. Like he doesn't think of like you have to create stories that have like explicit exegetical basis. Like that's not how
Mhm.
Western Europe was developed. What you do is you have the metaphysical implications of Christianity, and you Christianize the world that you found. So absolutely 100%. I think that's the way to understand Tolkien. That's why, like, I think like a lot of people say like C.S. Lewis and Tolkien wrote Christian fictions, and like evangelicals were like look for like hidden analogies to the gospel or something. It's like, no, that's not what they were doing. They conceived of a
Mhm.
united world with God at the top, and this kind of like this cathedral. The whole world is a cathedral. The whole world belongs to this natural cosmic order. That's the Christianity of these stories and these tales. So yes, I think that's how you should approach Tolkien.
Well, and that's why I mean, Tolkien was much more keyed into Anglo-Saxon heritage, and like Northern Europe. But I mean, I think the same thing holds true with like the Greco-Roman world. Why it's important to read the Aeneid and the Iliad and the Odyssey, is because that's the mythos that upheld the classical world.
Right.
And that's the world that God uh, created for Christianity to take over.
Yeah, for
Right?
sure.
I mean,
Exactly.
he divinely ordained that the oikumene, what would be Greek and Roman, and that the gospel would go into that world. Right? He
Hmm.
designed it for it to be taken over by the gospel. And
Hmm.
the same thing
For sure.
with Norse religion. It's the exact same thing. And that's why, like, I mean, Tolkien loved Beowulf, right? And Beowulf
Hmm.
is kind of this in between where like the Christian world is beginning to take over the Norse world. And I mean, some people even say like Beowulf is a Christian epic. I don't know if I would necessarily go that far, but I see why they say it. And you're taking the mythos and you're Christianizing it, right? And
Hmm.
that's and you it's part of that entire process is right. You don't just like it's Christianity is not a revolutionary religion, right? Where
Right.
it just eradicates the past and creates something totally new and different.
Hmm.
It takes it like grace comes in and transforms that world. It
Hmm.
doesn't eradicate it.
Hmm.
So
Exactly. Yeah. Do you have an answer to this? I don't know enough about um I don't know enough about current publications and current fiction and fantasy to know if I could answer this.
I think Jesse's right here. That Tolkien he says Tolkien also synthesized his own mythology to add to the tradition,
Hmm.
contextualizing it to the present future. Who is doing that work today? Oh, that's a good question. I don't know if anybody is, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
If they are,
Not at like a grand scale. Not at a grand scale. Like
yeah, not like that. Yeah,
yeah. I hate to say it, but like you need something. You need a new epic, like what like George Martin or whatever. Like you need something like that,
but
but
not
but not.
fake and
Yeah, yeah, not
yeah,
pornographic, but
yeah, yeah,
but that's not my point. Like Tolkien created a meta narrative of a world, and that's what you need. I don't think anyone's doing that. I don't
yeah.
think you can. I don't think you can do that today. So
Yeah, I think I mean maybe I mean Dune's not a mythology. I mean it is a mythology actually, but like Dune was that very much that. I mean it's a futuristic mythology. But no, that's exactly it. I mean, I think here's how much time do you have left, CJ? I didn't we
I'm
on your production
actually
meeting.
I'm actually good. I'm actually good today. I
Okay.
think you're the one that's more time restrained.
Yeah, right here we how do we support Contramundum and all of our and y'all's work? We could say that because you were just in Arkansas. You could say y'all. Do y'all have a Patreon? We don't have a Patreon at this point. Um, Andrew's not invited. We've talked in the past about setting one up. I think maybe after year one, right?
We're all gonna make it
45 episodes
is
in, yeah,
accepting checks.
and
I
Bitcoin, yeah, yeah. But at some
well,
point, I think we'll set one up. Yeah,
yeah, eventually. We're not here to make a ton of money. Although we did just commit to this, by buying an annual subscription to the StreamYard
yeah,
service, the premium
yeah,
StreamYard services. So that was expensive, and maybe we'll come up with a way for you to buy us a gift or something for Christmas.
yeah, yeah. We'll discuss that in the meantime. I think the CJ and Andrew answered the questions about eating but not lifting. Very curious. Oh yeah, let's go back to. I was
We,
gonna answer that.
there's a lot of
Let me.
questions we've missed. We haven't been able to get them
We
all.
haven't. I'm sorry that we haven't gotten every single question because there's a lot of good ones. Here we go. Here it is. I'll scroll back up and find it. All right, I'll let you answer this one first. Where your lifts at, CJ? Squat, bench, deadlift.
Not, I don't do anything. I don't do any of that. I am
What?
not. Yeah, no. I'm very Californian. I swim, I bike, and I run. So I
We
could
got
tell you where my mile is at.
to change that, man.
Yeah, I swim and I
No,
bike and I run. Yeah. So
mine.
sorry.
Mine are mine are not that good. I think let's see. The last year, my one. I'm gonna actually deadlift today and test another one rep. So I'll let you know if I break. The last one I did for deadlift was 455, so I didn't even break 500. I've been cutting. So that was I mean the best I've ever done is like 550. But so I haven't been cutting. I've been since Thanksgiving I've been plateaued. I've been at the same weight. So I'd like to if I'm hoping to get to 485 today on the deadlift. Squat, the last one I did was 415 and bench 315. So not I mean it's nothing spectacular. I'm not going to win any weightlifting competitions, but I think that's still over 1,000 if I did my math right for a total. So it's I guess respectable. But I'm 37 now, so I could
Are you
still have
really?
little, yeah,
That's
I've
funny. I
got
didn't know
I can
that.
still have a little old man strength in me, but
That's
I'm
crazy.
about to
You're 5 years older than me.
yeah,
4 years
you didn't
older.
know that? Yeah, you didn't know
No.
that? Yeah, I'm an old man.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
Remember, like, um, remember, like, Rod Dreher in his attack on me said I'm a young man. He must have been thinking about you and not me. Like, you're the kid here.
That's fun.
Yeah, I'm
Wow.
almost 40.
Love
So
that.
let me scroll down. There's a few more. So yeah, it's
This one,
it's over. Hopefully he's saying it's over because you don't lift and not
no, that's what
it's
he was. Yeah, that's what he's
my
saying.
total because my total is not that impressive. Um, all right, it's never been more over than it is now. Yeah, CJ, we gotta like get you some Ripito starting strength. Like just get the very basics.
What do you think,
uh
Andrew?
100 that now yeah we've been going longer now. We can do some silly questions.
I would choose the one chicken.
100 chicken. No, you obviously not been around chickens.
No, I have chickens.
A horse-sized chicken would
But
be
just hypothetical. I can also imagine myself as like the Green Knight. You know.
dude, like a horse-sized chicken is like a velociraptor, man. Like that thing will kill you. Easily 100 chicken-sized horses, easily, right? Horses, I just kick them out of the way. Oh, this is yeah. This is the other one. We're doing some silly ones here. This is actually correct. It is Culver's.
I've never had Culver's.
CJ's gonna say something like In and Out or whatever, and it's like
Um, yeah, probably In and Out.
Yeah. Culver's a million times. Someday when you come visit Minnesota, you're gonna have to try Culver's because it's very good. They use real butter to cook the burgers, so
Wow,
bear that in
impressive,
mind. Yeah,
impressive.
so no seed oils, at least in the burger, in the bun, and everything else there is. Yeah, so yeah, that is that's the thing. Like I and I don't eat fat. Like the only fast food that will indulge in at this point is B-dubs because they fry the wings in beef tallow. That is the only Culver's just moved into town. Not impressed. Sad. 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 Here's a good one. We talked about this with Rag Nationalist a couple weeks ago on
Hmm.
nicotine consumption. Um, the various methods. I mean, I prefer the lozenges. The especially I like Zin. I mean, it made me sad when he's like, it's sort of become somewhat Reddit lately. And it's like that's true. It has like people. It's reached kind of the preference cascade.
Is there chemicals in it, like dyes or sugars or anything?
I don't think so. I mean, whatever the flavoring is, obviously is some kind of chemical.
Yeah,
But I don't think I don't think there's very much. I mean,
I've never tried anything like that.
it literally is just like nicotine salt. And so that is yeah, I don't think that's so bad. But I think I've smoked cigars before too. I don't do that so much. Really only if I'm golfing.
Hmm.
Do I have the occasional cigar or some kind of if you're with some friends that you haven't seen in a long time, things like that. But typically it's just uh typically just the lozenges. I think the hard thing with a lot of the common um forms of nicotine that exist that you can get is they're so full of additives. Whether it's chew or cigarettes or whatever, like it's just the benefit that you get from nicotine is more than nullified by all the other garbage that's in there.
Hmm.
Which is why I prefer the lozenges, which are basically just the straight up nicotine. But I mean, we talked about this. Like it is not a coincidence at all in my mind that at the same time that they're trying to push THC and marijuana on everybody,
Hmm.
they're making it like they just passed like a nationwide 21 like ban. Anyone younger than 21 can't buy nicotine products
Yeah.
anymore. And it's like, and now, but they're
Wasn't that
opening up
already? Wasn't that
THC.
already a rule?
In California, it probably has been for the last
Oh
couple
yeah.
of years.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah.
But
Yeah, we're ahead of we're living in the future.
and it's like, all right, we put a man on the moon with coffee, or maybe we did. I think we did. With coffee and cigarettes, right? That's what powered it.
Uh-huh.
And now what do we have is nothing
If we
but
yeah,
pot.
if we were actually on the moon, it was on coffee and cigarettes.
It was on coffee and cigarettes.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Like that.
Like Ben Braddock is always tweeting out like I stand with big tobacco.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. That'd be nice if we got a big tobacco sponsorship. Yeah, there's injection. Yeah, I know there is injection nicotine, and of course there's like nicotine gum and things like this, and patches and whatever else that people. I mean, those are typically for people that are trying to get off of smoking cigarettes.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, that's fun that we went down the nicotine road. But yeah, now I have to scheme ways to get CJay to start lifting. That's everyone needs to mog CJay into lifting now. That's priority number one.
I swim. I swim.
I mean, swimming is good. It's very good. It's very Lindy. But so is lifting. You gotta pick up
Yeah.
heavy stuff. Like, how are you going to be able to survive in outside of California?
You forget that I do build trailers for a living, so it's part of it.
Yeah,
I know it's not the same, but there is a natural aspect of working manual labor for a living,
picks the trailers up over his head. Oh, we lost CJay's volume. Oh, we lost him. CJay's gone.
I'm
Oh, there
back.
you are. You're back now. I think you're in the you have your headphone microphone on now though.
Oh, let me see. Really?
Maybe, I don't know.
Uh, let's see. All right, now we're back.
Yes, but yeah, I'm gonna have to get going here soon. What so any last couple questions that people have, hit the chat. Otherwise, yeah, I gotta get rolling. What stuff have you been working on? I mean, you've been traveling, so probably not a ton.
Not really. Yeah, just I mean, I've been just traveling and staying offline. Really, it's funny. I haven't been tweeting as much. Although I did tweet some things yesterday that got people mad, so that's always fun.
Yeah, I did. Mine kind of took off too. I mean, one is like, oh, is your it is this
Yeah,
is a good question. Where'd it go? Is the podcast version no like it is going up? It's just behind. It's
we're all gonna
we
make it. Just blame
well,
him.
yeah. I mean, it's actually me. But I've been traveling a ton too, so I haven't. It takes a lot of time, like more
It
time than you
does.
think to put. Although Forge and Anvil guys know that they do podcasts, so they know the audio stuff takes time. Takes a good amount of editing and to make it
Good,
sound good.
good amount of zen.
It definitely takes a good amount of Zen to get it done, and it's just time consuming. Like you have to wait for stuff to upload and things like that. So I'll
You can't
probably
listen to music while you do it. Like it's kind of mind numbing.
it's yeah it is so anyway, I'm not going to complain too much about it, but it we'll get it caught up here next week.
Wait, what is a
And
workbook? Wait, what does this mean? What brand of workbooks?
yeah, what
Or
do
did
you
he
mean
mean
by
work boots? Did he mean work boots? I don't know. We'll
I
see.
don't know. CJ has reached his allotted limit of audio per California law.
It's true. So true.
That's right. That's right. We only get so much. Yeah. You joke about that, but it's probably coming. Uh, work boots. There you go.
Yeah, I was right.
What are your favorite work
Um,
boots?
I have a pair of it's actually a pair of what is the I just went brain dead on it. It's something you wouldn't expect. Oh, Caterpillar. I actually have a pair of Caterpillar boots that I use.
I've heard those are really good.
Yeah, like the tractor brand.
Yeah.
For those who are aware, but like I love them. I love them. So that's what I would use. So it's not a traditional work boot, but it's what I use for my work. So and I use that outside when I'm doing all of my firewood stuff and clearing my property. So that's what I would go with.
I have mine is it's also a brand that's become extremely Reddit in the last couple of years. Carhartt.
Uh-huh.
It used to be like the gold standard for everything
Yeah.
here. I mean, it still kind of is. It's still very high quality stuff. But it's like now, like girls who like Taylor Swift are wearing Carhartt hats everywhere. It's like
Oh
my
yeah. I know.
culture is not your costume, right? Like,
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
the Carhartt work boots I have are awesome. Like I wear them. I mean, I go walking in them in Minnesota, like to keep my feet insulated and warm, which is
Hmm.
like in when if you don't have winter where you are, like that's the single most important thing
Yeah,
is do you have warm boots that'll keep your feet warm?
for sure.
Um, and they're waterproof. And the other thing that's always hard with work boots when you're outside in an icy place is there good grip on the bottom and like
Exactly. Yeah.
it is they're excellent boots. And like the big thing with work boots is if you get a expensive pair that's 150 or $200, they'll last you for 10 years if you just
Right.
change out the insoles every year or two.
Hmm.
Like that is like a good pair of work boots is everything, man. Like it is great when you have them, and
Hmm.
when you don't have them. When you have
Hmm.
a junky pair,
Hmm.
it makes life miserable. Um, this is this is another good one. Um,
I'm gonna go with cringe pagan wig nets.
I'm just gonna say neither, man. Like they deserve each other. like
Oh come on,
like
that's no fun.
that's a cop out, but they're I mean it really is a phenomenon. Like both things are a phenomenon. It's like horseshoe theory, right? It is these it's people that because everyone is so deracinated, uh you'll go to like the fringiest thing to try to recover an identity.
Mhm.
and so that's
Mhm.
what both respective groups have done, because like mainstream American Christianity is it doesn't go down that road where it embraces. I mean, you sort of have this in some Lutheranism, or at least you used to, in where it would embrace kind of the Germanic heritage.
Mhm.
But even that, like you see the stuff going on in the LCMS, like that's gone by the wayside too.
Mhm.
So in that vacuum, right? Anyone who wants to be conscious of like their historic way of life as a people, is going to go to the weirdest possible thing.
Right.
And so like the Black Hebrew Israelites, it's to me it seems like another iteration of like the Nation of Islam, where it's just here's this kind of made up identity that with this silly fictitious history
Mhm.
that people adopt, and because it gives them meaning, right? That's
Mhm.
why they go to it. Like it gives them meaning as a people, that they're forbidden from having, right? Because the saner versions of these things are totally eliminated and forbidden. um People will go to the weirdest possible stuff, right? The fringiest thing, right? That's why these phenomenon exist. So Thorogood, I've heard good things about Thorogood work boots, made in USA. Always a good thing. I have no idea where my Carhartts are made. Almost certainly not in America. Maybe they are. I mean, Carhartt says made in America all the time, but do we really buy that? I don't know.
As a
But
Californian, like those things, usually they bring in the entire product from like China, and then they like adjust it or like like affect it on the shores here, and then they call it made in America.
well,
Like
and
that,
the other
that
side of
happens
it
all the
too.
time.
The other
Yeah,
side of like the made in USA like sticker is made in USA, but by
Mexicans.
foreign people anyway. Like all like it's like it's made in the USA, but what kind of
Yeah.
Americans? Like actual Americans,
What kind
or
of Americans? Yeah.
or like people that got here last week, right?
Yeah.
And so like the whole made in USA thing is become kind of silly for that reason, because there isn't a USA. Right?
Yeah.
They just, instead of making it in China or Honduras, they brought Honduras here to make it.
Right. Right. Right.
Um,
Right. Right. Right.
oh, here we go. We are going to be this is challenge mode impossible. I think we can do this.
He's like, I'm out. I'm not gonna do this. I'll go first. So I don't know. That
I
I don't
mean,
know. You're like you just rage quit.
I'm out. See ya. I'm out.
I can't think of anything. I don't know. I don't know.
I can do this. I
What
got it.
yeah,
I can do
go
this.
for it.
I can do this. I appreciate a state that is formed around its identity as a people. Right?
Okay, there you go. Yeah.
I can appreciate that, and that at the very least seems to operate for the benefit of its people.
Mhm.
Um does that count as one thing or two things? You know, uh so it's a good question. Like I heard an apocryphal story about JD Vance, where he was basically saying this is like, I wish America was much more like Israel in this aspect, right?
Mhm.
I wish we prioritized our people and did things for the sake of our people like they do. Um and so, their entire foreign policy is centered around what is good for them and for their
Mhm.
people. I wish we did that. That would be great. Um and
But
and
that
they
that's not really like an appreciation that like benefits us. Like I was thinking of the question more like, what
Okay.
things how have we benefited from Israel in any
What are
way?
they Oh, yeah, what are they doing that we benefit? Well, nothing.
But no,
Absolutely
you
0.
yeah, no,
Yeah.
I think your answer is legitimate though.
In
So,
in yeah, in the frame that you're looking at it, yeah, I can't think of a single thing. Of course not. But in terms of, like, how they actually operate, like, I mean, this is the thing, like, you look at the insane woke, anti-Israel people, and this is why the question of, like, Israel and Gaza and everything is so, is much more complex than people think, because, like, we're not neither you nor I are never going to be accused of being pro-Israel. Um, but, like, those people that hate Israel, the reason they hate it is not the reasons why we are against Israel at all.
Yeah.
Like we have no similarity to those people at all. They hate Israel because they recognize, and this is sort of Kofifi Annan's catchphrase on Twitter, right? The woke are more correct than the mainstream. They view Israel as a European country, right? That's how they view it. We largely don't, but I think in one sense, they're kind of right. That it is a model of a European country, of a Western country, um, in at least in its structure, and they hate it for that reason, right? That's why they hate it. Because they hate Western civilization, they hate Western Europe, they hate anything that they hate America, and so that's the reason they hate it. They don't hate it because of how destructive it is to the Middle East and how destructive it is to our country. That's not a consideration of theirs at all. Like they want to destroy our country. So if anything, they like Israel for those reasons. And yeah, this is a good point here. Right, just the internal politics of Israel. I only mentioned like two things. I don't know if I can get to three, so maybe I failed the challenge. But this is an important point on Israel: is that there really was this civil war between Netanyahu and well, I mean, there are multiple factions here too, more than just this, between like Arab Jews who vote for Netanyahu and the more secular Ashkenazi. So you have like the religious Zionists and the secular ones, right? There was this major conflict between the two.
Mm-hmm.
And the Likud, of course, is like the hardline party that's like, we're going to have peace through strength, and we're going to destroy all of our enemies, and we're going to flatten Gaza and all of this kind of stuff. And I mean, I just look at it like I don't know if you guys have, or if you, CJay, have listened to Martyr Maid's podcast they did a couple of years ago on Israel and Palestine. It's extremely good. I don't know if you have any, if you've already reached your allotted podcast listening hours for the state of California, but if you get the chance to listen to that, because I think he's extremely level-headed and he presents the perspective of both sides extremely well, so much so that like people on either side hate him for it, which is probably a good sign. And his perspective is that like peace absolutely is achievable in Israel between the Palestinians and the Israelis.
Mm-hmm.
It's and his conclusion, more or less, is that the hardliners in Israel have sabotaged it every step of the way.
Right.
That they don't want right, they don't want there to be peace, right? You could
Mm-hmm.
have the way Americans view this is incorrect, because we're just programmed to believe that here's the peaceful Israel in this place of evil jihadist Muslims that want to destroy Israel. And it's like, that's actually not the case at all. Like there's a reason why Hamas exists and why, Palestinian terrorists exist. It's like he's approaching it from a rational, uh,
Yeah.
uh, political realist perspective, rather than just saying, oh, they're insane jihadists and they're just going to kill and murder no matter what. That's the typical like American perspective. And it's like, no, they're like, peace absolutely is achievable.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not going to be so long as the goal of the entire land of Palestine becoming Israel and under Israeli control. Like that's the goal of the Likud and like the Netanyahu faction and so forth, is they want every square inch of that land to be under their control and domination. They don't want a separate Palestinian state, right?
Right.
Period. They don't
Right.
want to govern themselves. And so it's been sabotaged. And so
Let's
until
let's
you get over it, like that's not going to happen. Yeah.
let's we should end on that. But do you remember what episode it was? I'll listen to it because you've mentioned it several times, and I need to get to it.
It's a series, so there's like 5 or
Oh,
6 episodes that he's done on it. I'll send it to you, and maybe I'll
yes.
put it, I'll tweet it out,
You should.
and post it. And it's absolutely fantastic, and I think it's prerequisite for anybody, even if you totally disagree with Daryl and are like, no, he's wrong, he's totally wrong. At least it gives you Fear and Loathing in the New Jerusalem. That's the title of it.
Nice title.
And yeah, it's absolutely fantastic, and I mean, extremely deep dive in the history of it. And so I think, yeah, if like, in order to be able to comment on what's going on intelligently, like you have to listen to that and understand the history of it, because most people don't. They're approaching it in a vacuum
Mhm.
where they're just looking at
Right,
what's
right,
on the
right, right.
news 5 minutes ago, and it's like you can't understand a conflict, right, without any of the without any of anything that came before.
Mhm.
You That's not possible. So anyway, yeah, that's what this is actually good. A very good last question. This will be the last one. Jonathan's last question is a great one. Okay.
I'm so bad at these.
In the past decade, I've
The
hardly
last
watched any TV in the last decade. So until 2013. So 2013 to 2023. Which television show? Um, this
Yeah,
is
you
tough.
can't I mean, you can't just choose one that has the worst content. It has which ones had the worst impact.
Impact on the country. Yeah. I'm trying to think, what's like the most popular stuff. I mean, I would maybe say like Game of Thrones, because that had
Yeah,
that had almost zero cultural impact. Like nobody
but
even
that's what I'm
talks
saying.
about it anymore.
That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. It had terrible stuff, but like impact. Yeah, no, actually, I could agree with his answer. The Office.
You would have to say maybe 15 years if you're going to go with The Office. I would say that's what I was going to say, but I'm like, that does. Did it end by 2013? I would say The Office for sure in the last 20 years, and I loved it when I was in college. Right, I thought it was hilarious and everything. Everybody loved it, and
Hmm.
but you look at it, it's every like the irony poisoning of everything
Hmm.
is like, where does it come from? Is that right? Everyone wants to be Jim Halpert, like staring in the camera, like, when like the actual hero of the show, the only one that's authentic in the show is Dwight Schrute, right? That isn't like totally poisoned by irony
Yeah.
and just, cringe Reddit, beliefs and attitudes.
Hmm.
Is like Dwight. Right? It's
Yeah.
supposed to be the bad guy in the show, but
Yeah.
I think Parks and Recreation I mean, it was almost like a spinoff, even though it's not in the same. It's same thing, right? Where I mean, both of those things, right? That kind of comedy. I think if you want to go back like 30 years, probably Friends is in this vein too.
Yeah. For
Um, and
sure.
and I mean, I would even maybe say Seinfeld, even though Seinfeld's hilarious and I loved it. Um, it is, it is. Oh,
Am I gone? What?
did I lose myself? I'm
No, you're
gone. Here
here.
we go.
You're good.
I was getting a phone call. Yeah, I think it is. Um, it is. It's probably that, because it completely poisons all of human relationships. Right. That's
Hmm.
the point. Oh, definitely not Frasier. We're gonna say no to Frasier. Not Frasier is great. I'll stand my ground on Frasier, even though like culturally, it's very amoral as well. But I would say, in terms of like modern television, yeah, no one speak ill of Frasier. But I would say Seinfeld, because like all of it is totally ironic and cynical. Right.
Hmm.
There are no genuine human relationships in that show.
Hmm.
Um, it is it's like it's hatred of everything that's genuine and real and beautiful, right?
Yeah.
That's like, when you analyze that show, that's how you have to look at it.
Speaking of Minnesota, Little House on the Prairie is probably the greatest achievement for American television, in my opinion. Do your kids watch that?
uh they've been reading the books.
Yeah.
I haven't had them watch the show yet, but it is. You're right.
It's like the
It
most
is.
wholesome. You should watch it with them. It's so wholesome, and like the the like it reiterates like the family structure, masculine
Yeah,
leadership,
yeah,
heroism, courage, the struggle and strenuous nature of life, and it's
and
great.
America, and it's a celebration of
Yeah.
like true Americana, of
Yep.
what our people created out of
Hmm.
nothing,
Hmm.
right? And so, yeah, on that note, I do have to get going here.
Yeah, I know. I know.
Yeah, I'm thankful for everybody. This was a great episode, a lot of great questions. We'll have to do this maybe again in like 6 months.
Yeah, it's fun.
As questions pile up, and maybe we'll maybe promo it a little bit more so people can like email and DM us.
Maybe I won't change the time next time. either.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's okay. Things happen. It's tough to manage schedules. So yeah, until next week. I think next week we will have a Christmas episode. We'll discuss. Uh, we'll save this last one for next time because that's going to be another 20 or 30 minute question to have the mind of Christ. What does that mean? But hold that question, Sebastian. Hold that question. But yeah, I'm so thankful for everybody listening and watching. Please share the show, get people to like and subscribe. It's continuing to grow. It's very, very slow rolling. We're probably never going to be million subscriber YouTube stars, and that's okay. Like somebody said, I don't know if you saw this on Twitter. They said yeah, they love the podcast, but we're way too extreme to share with normies. And I'm like,
We're holding back.
if
We're
only
holding.
you knew. This was extreme. Whoa.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you all for listening. Really appreciate it. And until next time, stay dangerous, and we will see you next time.